Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. With this week's episode of the Market Monday, we are going to talk about the current outlook of not just Iconic Masters, but Magic the Gathering as a whole. A lot has happened over this last few weeks. There's some pretty good videos out there. I actually do recommend go checking out Iconic Masters set. Is it worth it to buy? Iconic Masters by Solarian Community College, as I think his analysis is spot on for kind of the problems with Iconic Masters. Other than he is a lot more optimistic than I am. I'm extremely pessimistic now for Iconic Masters and what it's going to do to Magic the Gathering in the next, not only the next few months, but years to come, with just the insane amount of product that is being released. Yes, we've all called for reprints, but not so much in this sort of fashion. I talked about in one of my videos, I thought Iconic Masters should have been at the quantities of Modern Masters 1, just because there's really nothing in this set that really needs an influx in heavy supply. Just low supply would have done for most of these cards, as you can still see the price of Iconic Masters is just getting killed. And we're going to compare it to other sets, other Master sets here in a second. But the topics for this one, it goes beyond Iconic Masters. There has been a lot of mumbling around the community about representation, about the community that is kind of split at the moment. It's always been split, though. I mean, that's what happens when you have a company based in one of the most controversial ideologies, kind of the Seattle culture, where it, just to be frank, as someone that doesn't live in a coastal city, there have always been a kind of a division in people. You saw it in the election this year, of people that kind of the elitists is what we'd like to think, that kind of forget about mainland America and kind of our ideals and our values and kind of step on it. It's very degrading and very insulting at times. And I think that's what's kind of happening with Magic the Gathering. Maybe not in a coastal versus midland type thing, but definitely in a certain ideology versus the rest of the community, and where that's going to actually impact the market. And whether or not it's right, whether or not the analysis is correct or fair or pretty much anything, it will affect the market. And we're going to talk about why that is, and really focus on a psychologist named Daniel Kahneman and kind of his works in the field of psychology. Let me give a little bit of background before we get into that. So this could kind of be a rambly video. I'm probably going to bounce all over the place. So as many of you know, I was in a very tumultuous relationship, very toxic relationship with a girl who had a condition called borderline personality disorder. I consider borderline personality disorder to be one of the worst emotional disorders that you can have, because it is functioning enough where people can go about their daily lives and be a pretty much normal person in every aspect of life except for relationships. And then in relationships, it triggers them into a emotional state, where they really fear intimacy. And what comes along with fearing intimacy is a whole cornucopia of problems. It's considered the "I hate you, don't leave me" syndrome, where they are so attached to their relationship partner, but at the same time they resent that attachment. So they try to get you before you can get them, so to speak. And it just causes so much problems in a relationship. And so for 3 years, I was kind of hostage. An emotional prison is what I like to kind of compare it to. And they call it crazy making, because pretty soon enough it starts to make you crazy. So for 3 years, though, I lost a lot of my friends, a lot of my all of my self-respect and self-esteem, and it was just something I had to recover from. And one of the things I decided to do is, it's kind of like, if you can't beat them, join them type stuff. So I wanted to get to the bottom of A, what was causing this, and B, why was I actively attracted to this sort of thing. And so I went to therapy. It didn't really, therapy is great. I found a great therapist that helped me, figure out some of my emotions and things like that, and why I was attracted to, crazy. But then I also decided that I was going to go a step further, and I really wanted a degree in psychology. I actually wanted to focus in abnormal psychology. And so I went to school for it, finished off my associate's degree in psychology, and then started working on my bachelor's in psychology. And I just got really, really frustrated with abnormal psychology, because abnormal psychology, especially borderline personality disorder, was kind of like the protected class. you weren't allowed to discuss certain things about borderline personality disorder. I have theories about that are controversial. It affects mainly women. In fact, it's like some studies say upwards of 90% of people that get diagnosed with borderline personality disorder are women. I have theories that men are just diagnosed as being antisocial and thrown in jail, where women are given a borderline personality disorder diagnosis and they just get rinsed and repeated through through different therapy, different women's shelters, things like that. So again, I know I'm going to really rub people the wrong way when I talk about borderline personality. I don't think it's possible for me to be objective about it, just because as being a victim of someone who had the condition, of course, it's going to make me very, very jaded. But at the same time, with my own experience with it, it was just awful to see how much money gets thrown at borderline personality disorder with terrible results, in my opinion. I don't think that dialectical behavioral therapy does anything, which is where all the money goes. And when there's also so many other, things in abnormal psychology that I was passionate about. I had one of my best friends had schizoaffective disorder and he ended up taking his life. If you really want to look up a tragic, very, very tragic illness, look up schizoaffective disorder. It's probably the most tragic mental health issue out there. And not a lot is known about it, and it's just very, very heartbreaking. And to watch my friend just go through these cycles of being completely normal and then kind of losing touch with reality and then bouncing back. For you to know, schizoaffective disorder, it's kind of a in-between diagnosis between two mood disorders, one being schizophrenia and one bipolar disorder. And it's not quite schizophrenia. I've talked about in the past that schizophrenics eventually, what we call, quote, become crazy. So it almost was like it goes egosyntonic, so it goes along the wills of the ego, where it's just their way of life. They become almost okay being a little bit off, with either, if it's negative schizophrenia, positive schizophrenia, it's something they eventually just learn to live with. Whereas someone with schizoaffective disorder will bounce back between periods of psychosis and then periods of just being completely normal functioning human being. And it's hard for them to keep relationships. It's hard for them to keep jobs. And it was just heart-wrenching watching one of my best friends go through this. And he did end up taking his life. And so there was a lot of things I was passionate about with abnormal psychology, but it got to the point where politics seemed to be entering into especially abnormal psychology more than anything, where, again, things became protected, where you weren't allowed to debate them. You weren't allowed to debate causes or life choices and things like that. And then it became very politicized, and it just wasn't something that I was interested in pursuing for much longer. Like I said, especially when I consider myself being victimized by one of these protected classes. And so I started to change my focus on what's called positive psychology. And positive psychology was just a beautiful field because it didn't focus on all the ailments of humanity. It didn't focus on all the negativity. It focused on what actually made humans thrive. And you might have heard of like Maslow and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Abraham Maslow was definitely one of the founders of positive psychology. It has a lot of Eastern philosophies in positive psychology. And so it was just a great change of pace. And that's where I was introduced to Daniel Kahneman. And then Daniel Kahneman happened to be a positive psychologist, but he also had these awesome theories on the markets. And he came up with a lot of the theories like cognitive bias and the heuristics and biases, where it's basically saying that people, emotions lead to poor decision making. When people are given like actual data, like empirical data or market data, a lot of times they'll rely on their emotions more than they will rely on the actual data. And I believe that it was Daniel Kahneman or someone that actually took his theories, and they created some software that analyzed what they called like the feel or the emotion of the market. And they realized that the emotions, how people actually felt about the market, had more to do with the market than the data, the actual, like the third or fourth quarter earnings did. Is that if people had a negative feeling about the market, prices would go down. And that's where a lot of the terms of bear and bull markets came to be. That a bull market was where people were, feeling great about the market. They were investing. They were actively, they felt that it was a good opportunity. Whereas a bear market could be the exact opposite, where everything could be actually fine, but the outlook or the people thought that it was eventually going to go down, or there's just a negative emotions relating to the market, and it would cause a bear market where people wouldn't like to invest. And so if you do have time, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you look up Daniel Kahneman with his what he's done for behavioral economics and apply that to kind of like Magic the Gathering. And now we're going to bring this full circle. Now I've got a 10-minute introduction to why I really think that we are heading towards a bear market. And there are some opportunities in bear markets. It's not all doom and gloom, especially for investors, because it gives you a particular time to get in on Magic when eventually the ebb and flow of markets do recover, and then you can make some very, very good profits. So we'll be talking about Iconic Masters here. We'll also be talking about other reprints in the not so distant future, and then analyze if there is any opportunity to be made. I already made an Iconic Masters video for Quiet Speculation, and I ended up deleting it because the price changed so quickly. This is like unprecedented how fast a master set can fall. So I'm going to be redoing that video, so you can go check that out at Quiet Speculation at, I believe, Thursday it will be launched. And I'll be talking about my top 10 cards from Iconic Masters and what price points that I'm going to get in on them. But for this video, though, I want to talk about what's kind of causing the bear market. So I'm not going to put out so much blame, but one misleading tweet can lead to a lot of hysteria. You saw like Alpha Investments make a video, MTG Lion make a video, a lot of people retweet the $12 million stat that was tweeted out or Tumblred out by Mark Rosewater about how there were 12 million active players and 35% of them or 25% of them should be women. So why aren't we seeing 1/4 of women on the Grand Prix circuit or on the competitive circuits? There must be something that, we've all gone down this road before. It's something that's just been looped and looped and looped and looped and looped and looped, and it's caused a lot of people to just leave the game and quit the game. And also, it was just that number, that absolute number of people thinking that we lost 8 million that has caused hysteria. Now, remember, a bull market doesn't even have to have, or if you go back to, the heuristics and judgment or the behavioral economics by Daniel Kahneman, the empirical data does not have to support the emotions. The emotions just have to be there for a bear market to start to happen. And I think we've started to see that. I think we started to see that people have lost all faith in the market. The Iconic Masters is making this worse, with the Iconic Masters being not only should have been a low supply, but it's the highest supply of a master set yet. This is the first master set that we're seeing at Walmart's. I was very ticked off about Eternal Masters because we saw them in secondary stores, like anyone that wasn't even WPN affiliated, but if they just had distribution. We have a store. We have Ace Hardware. I don't know if Ace Hardwares are in your areas, but they're in the West Coast, at least here in Utah. There's Ace Hardwares everywhere. They're mainly a hardware store, but they usually do run a little bit. It'll have like a name in front of it. Ours is called Larson's Ace Hardware, for example. So they have a board game section, and they have a fishing section, an outdoor section, a board game section. They have a lot of sections in their storefront there. And one of the sections they have is a board games section, and they had, even though they're not a Wizard Play Network affiliated store, they had boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of Eternal Masters. And it was very, very concerning as a local game store owner back then that not only did they have them, but even a speculator, someone that invests in Magic, that this was unknown quantities of a master set that we didn't know was going to be out there. And I do believe that Wizards should be careful with the amount of data they release, because if you do give people exacto numbers of what's out there, it's easy to predict the market to a T. And that the stock market especially too, the opportunities are usually gain in uncertainty. So if you get rid of all of the uncertainty, we see a very stable market, which ends up actually not being very good for buying and selling. That's just the name of the game there. So Iconic Masters, again, no, they didn't give us the amount of Iconic Masters at first. They told our store we could get 24, but now we can get it's like 60 directly from Wizards. And our distributors have insane amounts as well. And now, of course, they're at Walmarts and Targets and everywhere else in the entire world. There is plenty and plenty of Iconic Masters. So that's going to flood the market of a set that I don't think that can handle the supply. Because most of these cards are what we call low supply but low demand. So you got to think of even cards like Grove of the Burnwills or Horizon Canopy or Flusterstorm. These are cards that had high price tags at one point in time, but they don't really have the greatest demand. Legacy is such a dying format that there's not a lot of people that play Legacy already have their Flusterstorms. I think that Legacy is healthy, that it actually has one of the best retentions out of all the formats, but also has one of the worst recruitments into the format, just because the price point of Legacy is incredibly high. So it only takes a particular person to get into that format. So a card like Flusterstorm that only really sees play in that format is going to have a hard time keeping its price tag when it's a rare in a set that has so much supply out there. And you can see that most of these two, Magus the Moon is the perfect example. This card was only expensive because of the insane low printing of this card in Future Sight, and now it is just tanking. Look, 22% in a week here, one of the highest losses out of this particular set. So just, you put all of these factors together. We have people really getting upset over a Tumblr post, the kind of the domino effect happening, even though the 12 million might not be concerning. Well, let me just talk about that. So the 20 million stat came in 2015. We haven't had any real data that's been sent off, so we're kind of 2 years behind to begin with. So we have like some stats from 2012, 2014, and 2015, but no real stats past that. We do know that Grand Prix and F&M attendance is down, and we do know that Standard is better than it was last Standard. We do know that with just if you follow prices, you can definitely assume that during the Marvel, the Gideon, the Bands, that type of stuff. Standard was extremely on the downturn when cards like Toolcraft Exemplar that were 4-ofs in a deck, in the number one deck, couldn't go above 40 cents. There's a problem with Standard, and this one's a little bit better this Standard season, but still attendance is down across the board. So even if the Mark Rosewater 12 million stat is kind of overblown, we do have a stat from 2015 that also says 12 million of active players. So we're saying people that are actively using their DCI number. Wizard has said there's 12 million players there. So at least from 2012 to 2017, we've had a stagnation in active players. And that is never good for a market, because it's something that eventually the supply will outstretch the demand if they're still printing cards for growth, and then the growth is actually stagnated. It's going to lead to an excess of supply versus the demand. And I think that the speculators have been able to kind of offset or just create a kind of a myth. The speculators continue to speculate like or at least the stores have continued to buy cards like we're still growing. And eventually there's only a certain amount of time before that's going to fail. And once people start once the investors start throwing their cards back on the market, it is going to cause a chain reaction, and the chain reaction is going to cause more hysteria, and the hysteria is going to lead to an all-out sell-off, which is going to really affect the market for short term, if not for 4 months to 6 months. A couple months ago, I thought that 2018 was going to be a good market. 2017, by the way, was a phenomenal growth. Just look at Oath of Gatewatch 2. Let's just pick any one of these cards here. Let's pick at Elish Norn, and let's look at Oath of Gatewatch. So let's pick the one that was printed, Modern Masters 2. Let's look at Oath of Gatewatch 2 now. This was very normal for any commander card from Oath of the Gatewatch to Hour of Devastation. All of them doubled. So that was a great increase in at least the commander format. We had at least a double of people that entered into the commander field, which might just mean a lot of standard players transitioning over to commander. That's been my store to a T. We've probably, most of the people that play commander right now were recruited for a standard, and then they got sick of standard and have moved over to more of an eternal format called commander, a more casual format, a format where it's not as spiky and it's a lot more of a social game. And that's another topic I want to talk about, where Magic is like all in on Arena right now, and I think that's a huge mistake. There's someone I need to find the tweet by it where they say, they don't even play computer games. The whole reason why they play Magic specifically is the social aspect. That's the only reason I have paper cards, is for the social aspect. I play Magic Online for the competitive aspect, and I play paper Magic for the social aspect. And I think that I'm more invested in paper, way more invested in paper, than I am in Magic Online. And if they are completely just banking on Arena being this phenomenal hit without any evidence to support that, with another collectible card game coming out by a very, very competent company that made Dota. They're going to try to compete with that. I'm pretty sure those will release about the same time. And Hearthstone still just completely having phenomenal growth rates. I don't know if that's the right move for Arena to do so. And Magic is a more complex game. Either they're going to have to dumb down Magic for Arena, which it looks like they've kind of done, to make it a faster paced game. And we know that Magic cannot be played fast. Day9 has a very great quote when he did so terrible at his Pro Tour they invited him to, that he just knew that being a StarCraft player was a bad thing for Magic because he was so used to just making split decisions. You either, in StarCraft, it's worse to not make a decision than it is to not make any it's worse to not make a decision than it is to make a poor decision, because not making a decision means that you've lost out on whatever opportunity there was to actually make a decision. Whereas in Magic, you have all the time in the world to kind of think and strategize the 60-minute round games or whatever that is. There's plenty of time to kind of think out every decision to be made. And if they want to make that with a faster pace with Arena, it's really going to change the entire way the game plays. So there's a lot of uncertainty. I hate the move. I hate that they're banking on Arena. They're just kind of letting. It looks like more and more they're making MTGO something that they're just going to quit supporting, and that is going to really, really affect the market too if a lot of people lose all of their value on MTGO. So there is all of the makings for a kind of a bear market heading up to 2018, and that's scary with another Masters set coming out in March, and who knows, they'll do Eternal Masters. We're due for like another Eternal Masters in the fall, or some sort of master set, and I think that they're running out of things to reprint. I mean, this last one, Iconic Masters, I've always said this was the Modern Masters cards that just got missed in the last sets, like the Sarah's Ascendants, the Ariak Champions, the Elish Norns, the Cryptic Command again, Aether Vial, but like Horizon Canopy and Grove of the Burnwills, a lot of these Megas the Moon, a lot of these low supply cards that just had a lot or were expensive in Modern, and the only reason they were expensive, they were from early sets. So you've seen like Ariak Champion, this card is a $30 card down to a $7 card. That's what happens when you reprint, and that was holding a lot of the original value here. All right, so again, now what do we do? What do we do in bear markets? Well, the first thing you can do is short sell. So I highly advise that everyone short sells. What that means is you sell everything that you have right now in anticipation in 6 months you buy it back. So you win-win. You get rid of it, you let everyone else take the risk, you let the devaluation of stuff happen, and then you buy it back in 6 months. So anything you are actively playing in a Modern Standard Commander deck, I highly suggest you get rid of. And I'm thinking that this is not just going to be Iconic Masters, this is going to be Magic as a whole in at least the first quarter to the first 2 quarters of 2018 for Magic the Gathering. There are just too many products to be out there that people are going to spend their money on products rather on singles, and it's just going to lead to a huge decrease in the value of overall. So you can actually check like the format prices here. I think we're going to see a dip. This is kind of hard to check because this always changes based upon the top cards used in Modern. I wish there was just something that took the entire, instead of Modern staples, just took the entire Modern sets, like added up all these sets together and then saw if it decreases. If anyone, MTG Goldfish, you're watching this, let me know if there's a way to do this on your site. But if you can take, what's the best, most stable set that has the most just like good cards for Modern? Maybe Construct here for the fetch lands. Yeah, if we see this card, this set still continuing to go down, that's a bad sign for cards. So it did, yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a better way to do it. What's the most reprints are just killing Modern to begin with. But yeah, the staples is pretty good too though, because besides reprints, if it does go down, if you come over here and there's more down arrows than there are up arrows, that's a good indication of the market price going down. Maybe I'll check out like MTG stocks or MTG price to see if they have any sort of data. I do like MTG stocks because you do have this ability to look at like the top like historical highs and historical lows. And if there's way more historical lows than there are historical highs, you can tell we're in a kind of a bear market. So Yeah, so after short selling though, there a lot of times is opportunity just to buy into cards that actually have real demand. And how I do that, you can come check out my Rogue Market videos. I'm going to try to do them as much for this channel as I do for Quiet Speculation. So we're going to do halfsies. So you're going to get double the content. I'm not going to kind of take away the content from everyone in Rogue Deckbuilder. These are sponsored videos by Quiet Speculation, so they will be put on Quiet Speculation under their subscriber wall. But nonetheless, I will try for every video I do for them. I don't want to short everyone on the Market Mondays or the Rogue Markets, and I'll do one for this channel as well. So you're just getting double the content if you subscribe for Quiet Speculation. So speaking of which, shameful self-promotion or shameless self-promotion, I'll have the link in the description below how you can support the channel with the affiliate code and get great service with Quiet Speculation, who have many other financiers like myself talking about their opinions. So don't take my word for it. Definitely check out other people in the Magic the Gathering finance community. We all disagree very vehemently on some things. So the other way though is just to look for these Elish Norn type cards that have low, once they get reprinted. This one bottomed out $11 and it spiked back up to 28. And so I think the Iconic Masters is full of those particular cards. So let's go back over to Iconic Masters. And you can see that the cards that I really like, I'll do a more in-depth, are cards that see play in both the both formats. So both Commander and in Modern. And so that's where like Serra Ascendance will have some ability to grow. You'll actually see the cards like Cryptic Command sees a lot of play in both of them. Horizon Canopy and Grove, if these really do bottom out, I do think you should invest in both of them because they are going to see a lot more play in Commander. The whole reason why neither of these see a lot of play in Commander is just they're expensive. There is a price point. In one of my other video, I said we have a customer we like to call Jeffrey. And Jeffrey has a price point that Jeffrey won't buy a card over like $5. And in every one of us, there is a Jeffrey. And in this case, a lot of Commander players, the Jeffrey is $20 or $25 or $30. And once it goes down this price point, you'll see just all the red-green decks throw in Grove of the Burn Willows. And Grove actually has some very, very fun combos in Commander that synergize with negative effects when your opponents gain life. So those are the type of cards I like to invest in. Cards I don't like to invest in are cards like Thoughtseize that have price memory. What price memory is people remember this card being expensive, so they stubbornly hold on to them without selling them, without putting them back in the market, just because they remember it being... Tarmogoyf is the biggest example of that right now. It has taken forever for Tarmogoyf to go down in value. It has now have 4 printings, and it has fallen out of favor, with Fatal Push and Path to Exile being the #1 removal spells in Modern, and it doesn't actually see a lot of play compared to other cards. You can go over here to go to what we call format staples and then go to Modern. And does Tarmogoyf even hit the... It does. It's number 8. But throughout the history of Magic, a lot of times this Tarmogoyf is number 1. But right now we have Snapcaster, Noble Hierarch, Thought Not Seer, Thalia, Spellcaller, Birds of Paradise, Tarmogoyf down there. And there's a lot of times it doesn't even hit this top list. It just depends on what decks are actually hitting this metagame right now. So it looks like at the moment it's still getting enough hits from like Abzan having Tarmogoyf in that, but the rest of these Tarmogoyfs are all I mean, Death Shadow just got completely crushed. It's not even... Wow, Death Shadow's not even on the top. Oh, it is. Grix is Death Shadow, but that one doesn't use the Goyf. Yep, it's completely absent. This used to be one of the decks that was the #1. And it looks like, well, we have a deck that is now over the 6% mark, over the 7% mark, which is kind of rare for Modern because usually it's a very diverse format. And we don't know how bad this actually is with the hiding of data without a major Modern tournament for quite some time. But anyway, and that is another rant for another day. We all know I don't like Modern. I actually sold out of everything Modern. 2 reasons. Well, not in paper. Paper, I'm going to sell out of Modern after Rivals of Ixalan, since that's a Modern tournament. So I'm going to wait till cards spike up that after Rivals of Ixalan. Then I'm going to sell out of Modern. And then, well, what we consider a short sell. And then invest back in those cards after they bottom out. After they start to have their free fall again. So yeah, so I don't know. There's a lot of opportunity even with going beyond Iconic Masters, going into a lot of the sets that I think are going to be undersold, and maybe eventually the distributors and game stores are just going to start piecing them out. Like Rivals of Ixalan or Explorers of Ixalan, if they can open it up and sell it for more than what they paid for. There are some like Shared Animosity type cards in that, or Time Warps. If they can get it on that early and just piece out those cards, you might see that, but then eventually the supply line will end up catching up with it, and we'll see a crash in the overall cards in the Explorers of Ixalan. So again, I just think that all the pieces are there for the bear market to happen. I really think that if you're going to keep your value in your collection, you need to start moving cards into cards that are stable, cards like Path to Exile or Fatal Pushes. You could just trade for all of those fetch lands, those type of cards, so that you can mitigate your losses over this time of uncertainty. Back to Daniel Kahneman, it doesn't need, even this video is probably gonna have an impact on the market. Like people like me, you know, being that crazy person in the wilderness, what's the prophet, and the, you know, screaming about the flood is coming, the flood, you know, that will cause some hysteria and cause some people to react. And it's just gonna, I mean, these domino effects are going to happen whether or not we should be concerned about that $12 million value, or be concerned about the direction of the reprints or how much supply is being added into the field. Regardless if I am right, regardless whether hysterics are right, I think that the dominoes have been set in place and the bear is incoming, whether we like it or not. So let me know in the comment section below what you think about all of this. If there are any particular cards that you are speculating in. At the moment, too, I do think you should get rid of all of your standard cards that will be rotating in September. With Rivals of Ixalan being modern, there's not another Pro Tour that's significant with an amount of significant time before rotation occurs in September. What, we get a core set, I believe, right? So what is that one? That set comes out in February, or March, and then we get one in the summer, and then it's rotation. Correct? Am I missing something here? There's nothing that is coming out for another Pro Tour. So we should just get the one last standard Pro Tour that will just be with a few months within rotation, which is so insignificant. Just go look at Hour of Devastation, how it didn't really affect the market for, you know, pieces that did well in that Pro Tour. So I actually wish they would do modern for that one. That's the one where they should hit the modern or the legacy or whatever Pro Tour they want. Should be the last one before standard rotation, because it's so insignificant. That last small set usually has very little to do with the overall meta, as everything is so defined by that point, unless there's a busted card that gets printed. So anyway, that's my overall outlook. You should be getting out of standard. You should be holding on to some modern cards for Rivals of Ixalan and then selling off there. And in general, I would treat this very bearish. I would treat this as a short sale opportunity. Come back in when Magic crashes. Let me speak about that last but not least. I don't think Magic. I've had a lot of people message me and message me and asking my opinion if Magic the Gathering is just going to die. Absolutely not. By far, it has the most depth out of any game out there. I hope that Wizards will refocus itself. Maybe this arena thing will be this awful experiment. They've experimented and failed with other things in the not so recent past, like their movie. Like a lot of the direction they were going with their storyline and things like that. They've done a complete 180 on core sets, on modern Pro Tours, on everything. They've completely gone back to where it should be. I think that they need to look at a glory years. They should see what worked during Return to Ravnica and try to replicate that, rather than try all these wacky things that they have in mind to try to cultivate this, you know, all these unknowns, all these things that may or may not work. They should stick to what works. And if Wizards reevaluates their strategy, I think we'll see the latter part of 2018 and the early part of 2019 be extremely strong growths, be back to a bullish market. If the United States economy and the European economy can stick with that as well, if we don't see any downturns. You know, there's a lot of people predicting another recession occurring. If that doesn't happen, I absolutely do think that late 2018, early 2019 will be a very, very good time for growth. So you want to prepare for that. There aren't going to be a lot of great profits to be made in that time period. You're just going to have to accept, that's markets in general, the ebb and flow of markets. You're going to have to accept that this will not be a great time to be making any sort of significant progress on your Magic the Gathering collection, or if you are someone that uses Magic the Gathering to make money, this is going to be some tough times ahead. But there's so much opportunity. Think of all the people that got in on the recession that actually did invest in the stock market, like invested in like Amazon or like all these companies that bottomed out during the 2008 2009 recession, and then got in on the bottom and then just made out like bandits because they're the one people that, you know, the one person investing in the stock market at that time. And so you want to be that person, but you need to wait till the bull or the bear completely bottoms out before you do invest. Any other questions? I want to do a Q&A for like Market Monday, for Ask a Store Owner. Maybe we'll put it all together. You can see my channel stagnated out. I have a hard time reaching over 28,000 subscribers. It's actually kind of funny. The more views I get, the more subscribers are lost. It's kind of a bug in the YouTube algorithm. I don't know what happens with it. Check your notifications. Check if you're actually still subscribed to me. I've had a lot of people tell me they've been unsubscribed. And it just has to do with the purge. Like this like, once your channel gets old enough, it starts purging subscribers. And YouTube doesn't acknowledge it exists. But whatever other metric in my channel is growing. My Twitter's growing crazy. My Facebook is still considered to have great growth. The views are still on par when I release videos. Everything else is there. Subscriber rate goes down. So I used to do subscriber Q&As based on every 5,000. But I don't think I'm ever going to get above the 28,000 subscribers. Just going to keep purging people. I'm okay with that. I don't need to be a big YouTube name. I like my little niche. I appreciate my community. I think all of you are amazing. The outreach that I receive. It's tough being what I considered a blacklisted member of the community. We have a lot of companies that will not even have anything to do with me because of my controversial outlook on things, my ability, or I don't shy from calling out people like Mark Rosewater or people I think that are making terrible decisions in Magic the Gathering. And I think that's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. You know, they don't like to be anywhere near controversy, and that has affected my channel probably more than anything. But I appreciate all the people that still have stuck with me. The Cool Stuff Inc., the Gathering Magic, the Quiet Speculation, all the other people that have been very, very loyal to the Rogue Deck Builder brand and loyal to me. Big shout out to you guys. I want to give back to everyone. If you want cheap products, let me know. I have access to way more products than I know what to do with. So I like to give back to the fans or the patrons especially. And so I appreciate, everyone making this possible. I've been living a dream here for the last couple of years, being able to produce content and make money off of it and just have a voice in the community. So thank you very much. This has been awesome. Comments in the comment section below. Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.